What's going on, guys? It is Luminostic, and today we are going to dive into one of my favorite subjects, the occult works of Aleister Crowley, and specifically the Book of Lies, so falsely called, which is also called Breaks, the Wanderings or Falsifications of the One Thought of Frater Perdurabo. Frater Perdurabo being the magical motto that Crowley adopted when he entered into the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. Everyone has to adopt a magical motto. Mine was, man, it's been so many years. Omnibus confidence. Yeah. Confident in all things is what it meant. This book is super important for a number of reasons, and I think really it's only maybe rivaled by something that you'll find in the magical and philosophical commentary on the Book of the Law. And all this stuff you can find on hermetic.com. It's an excellent resource. I've had a few people tell me that they have trouble navigating it. So my advice is just don't navigate it. Just Google with Hermetic, whatever it is, and hermetic.com. And you'll just get the thing you're looking for. But I think they have almost the entirety of Aleister Crowley's writings and just anything that relates to the Western occult, the mystery schools, Hermeticism, all of this kind of stuff. You'll also notice that the number of this book is 333. Oh wait, no, 50. C is C 50 or 100? I can't remember. I thought it was 100. Isn't C 100? Pretty sure it's 100. It should be 333, which is interesting. I'm pretty sure it's 333. It's been a long time since elementary school. So what I was saying is that the entry in the magical and philosophical commentary on the Book of the Law is in regards to number and infinity, and this idea that success will be your proof. And the mystery school protocol, basically, has always been about experiential knowledge, about gnosis, about deriving spiritual knowledge from experience, from psychoactive plants, and from processes and techniques, instead of believing in some Bronze Age myth and placing your faith in it and being absolutely guaranteed to be disappointed in the end. And so this book is based upon the idea, the reason it's called the Book of Lies is that the entire universe that we experience is bound up in paradox. This is really the origin of duality. Everything in the universe has some sort of functionality. Nothing exists just randomly. It is all inextricably intertwined in necessity. We're in my Patreon, we have been actually looking at the Kabbalah, which factors pretty heavily into the Book of Lies, especially the beginning. But the entire thing is full of Kabbalistic significance, and we will take a look at that, including the diagram. But we've been diving into that, and one of the things that Albert Pike describes in Morals and Dogma, which is the book that we've been referencing, is that, the reality of the laws of the universe is that they are as they are because it is necessary that they are as they are. There could be no creation if they were conceived along some other line. So it is a matter of necessity that we have duality, that we have paradox. And because everything emanated from one thing, and that one thing, paradoxically, was nothing, you'll notice that that is a very constant theme in the Book of Lies. It is a knotty knot of noughts. I mean, you get the play on words, and that's kind of the point. But the idea is that this original dualistic paradoxical conundrum originated in the very earliest movements of the universe, and the simple fact that the only possible unity is nothing. Because as soon as you have a thing, you have an object, and you have space, you have two things. You have division, you have duality, you have the darkness of matter and the light or the nothingness that surrounds it, the ether, the primordial ether. And so, just as all life on Earth is said to have emanated from a single cell, the physical being a reflection of the non-physical, this original process, this primordial that was the catalyst to the creation that followed that first moment of awareness. It's all a process of replication by means of reflection. Just as the genetic code copies and repeats itself with variations, it does that because all things are a microcosmic reflection of the macrocosm in some sense. It's that Kabbalion, the hermetic axiom that the all is in the all, that it's holographic in nature. And this is also, it's necessary to understand this in light of a Kabbalistic saying that Keter is in Malkut and Malkut is in Keter. And so in order to understand that, we should look at the Kabbalistic tree of life. We have these two pillars, Jachin and Boaz. One represents darkness, femininity, mystery. You could call it even the left-hand path, although there's some negative associations potentially there, and perhaps there should be. And then on the other side, we have the white pillar, and Boaz is actually the left, and Jachin is the white. And the white is the masculine, and all of the associations, light and the positive charge and all of these kind of things. And you have to remember that, you know, if you take offense to the idea that the feminine is attributed to the darkness, this is not the kind of qualitative or moral judgments or qualities that we would make about these things. It has absolutely no relationship to any of that. It's just a recognition of the necessity of the interplay of opposites and how this third thing arises in the center because of the interaction of these various sephirot or energies. And so the basic idea is that there are three veils of negative existence, and as the thought of the deity, basically, which I have suggested and believe is actually the electromagnetic wave oscillating. This is what the word or the logos was, the real meaning behind it. We get order from symmetry, and the oscillating wave would impart that symmetry to the chaotic primordial stew of cosmic energy and give it form based on symmetry. And so when this process first pierced the veil and entered into Keter, which means crown, it divided into two, and we have Bina, which is understanding, and Chakma, which is wisdom. And these interacted to produce a third thing. And interestingly, this sephirot here is the 11th, which doesn't technically exist because it represents knowledge, which is relation. It's not a real thing. So it's usually drawn as sort of transparent on the tree of life, but it's not a proper sephira. And then we're not going to go through all of these one by one, because the important thing and what we need to take note of for our purposes is just that this interplay of opposites, that this one divided into two antinomies, and that process of division and then interaction to produce a third thing is the fundamental process, the pattern that everything else in the universe followed afterwards. And so Another important aspect of this diagram and this concept is that this light, having traveled down the tree of life, basically became trapped in matter, or it crystallized in matter. And it's worthy of noting that this concept is much, much older than modern physics, obviously. And so the knowledge that all matter is light in a standing wave definitely came well after the Kabbalah, and I'm not giving specific dates for that because it's contested. Exactly how old it is, I don't know who's correct, so I'm not gonna, but much older than modern physics for sure. And so Malkut basically represents that divine light having taken form in the foundation of Keter at the bottom. And so the process also, though, and for the individual souls that come down here, reverses. And so there's the descent of light into matter, and then there's the redintegration of matter back into spirit. And there is this necessity of the balance that is conferred by equal and opposite energies interacting and creating that gives us the basis, I guess, for the Book of Lies, so falsely called. And there are a lot of interesting stories that surround this book. One of them is that when the OTO formed, which is another example of these sort of opposite energies sort of reflecting each other or balancing each other, because it was around the same time that the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn was founded by two 33rd degree Freemasons, and it was very much a right-hand path, white hat lodge, whereas the OTO was more of a left-hand lodge, but was also founded by two 33rd degree Freemasons that broke off from the main body of Freemasonry. So, like, you had this process that was mirroring, it was mirroring, they were mirroring each other, sort of opposite energies, but of the same nature, I guess. And so Aleister Crowley published the book, I believe, in 1914. And the story is that one day there was a knock at the door, and he went and answered it, and it was one of the, like the outer head of the OTO. And he was irritated at Crowley because he had published the 9th Degree Secret, which it was either the 8th or the 9th Degree Secret. I'm not sure whether 8th or 9th. But either way, he had published one of the higher secrets of the OTO, and Crowley said, well, I haven't taken your oath, and I don't know your secrets, so that can't possibly be true, not guilty. And the guy went and pulled the book off the shelf and pointed to the offending passage, which is in chapter 69, the way to suck seed and the way to suck eggs. And there are lots of clues to be found in other writers' works. I'm not going to divulge this at the moment, but I will encourage you to read a book called Cosmic Secret 1. The other ones are good too, but the first one is Cosmic Trigger, the final secret of the Illuminati. And it kind of, one of the chapters in there sort of functions in a skeleton key, as a skeleton key that would help you extract the secret that is hidden in chapter 69, which will allow you to decode the entire symbolism of Freemasonry. And of course, there is a lot of much more in-depth discussion of all of this kind of stuff in my Patreon. So if you're interested in that, join us. And also, we are probably not going to put any more videos on this channel. I don't know if I mentioned that at the beginning of the stream. I'm only going to do live streams here, and then there are going to be video versions of this content on the new channel, because I'm going to try to get monetized again, although we're really up against a lot. It's going to take a lot of work. So And I'm not going to go through every single chapter, partly in the issue of time, but just my favorites. And I'd encourage everyone out there to take the time, get a copy of this book. There are 93 chapters, which is very deliberate, and take the time to actually go through it and decode it. It is infinitely rewarding, and my experience over the years is that the more you invest and the more time you put into this, the more fruits, the more reward you will reap. And it still to this day, although I have to admit it gets to be less over time, but every time I sort through this book again, there's always some new layer that peels off. One of the chapters is called Onion Peelings, and illuminates something that was in the darkness prior to this. Let me check in with the chat real quick, because I can't look at the chat. Yeah, I'm going to keep this live up. I'm not going to take anything down. It's just that I can't put duplicate content on two channels or they will demonetize the other one. So I have to actually remake every bit of content that I've created and put it up fresh on the new channel. So it's going to be quite the undertaking. So that's why I'm doing it this way. I can kind of flesh out the ideas in these live streams, and then later I'll edit it all and make condensed versions with maybe some graphics and stuff, whatever, actual videos. So this book is immediately brilliant because the first 2 pages are, Crowley says somewhere, the first 2 pages of the Book of Lies explain the universe. And it is absolutely true. And it's quite remarkable. And there are just so many layers of things that can be learned just from these 2 extremely basic symbols. And there is a lot that is implied, really, about the hidden workings of the human mind, and what the language of symbolism is really capable of. It's really quite remarkable. But the first 2 pages are an exclamation point, and then, a question mark, and then an exclamation point. And so, bearing in mind that the idea is that everything that came after was a reflection of this original event. And that original event was the sudden consciousness of the void of itself, of its existence. That, as Crowley puts it later on in the Book of Lies, nothingness became conscious and made a bad bargain, or something to that effect. And the reason that it made a bad bargain is that this introduction of something other than nothingness introduced duality. And so now we had a stain on the infinite face of perfection. God was no longer this infinite, perfect nothingness. There was something. And in order to delineate something, you have to have a line, you have to have a fracture, you have to have shade, you have to have darkness. And so because the veil that is spoken of in the occult is basically, you could think of it as a brain almost, or a consciousness that translates metaphor to object. And that's a very crude way to talk about it, but that's basically the idea. And so these 2 opposites that were born of this thought, I am, right? That's what in the Hebrew, the logos, the first word or thought of this nothingness when it became aware of itself was I am, eheye, I am that I am. And so when this division of this one nothingness into 2 occurred, it's basically what is represented by the 2 pillars in the temple, which are Boaz and Jachin, and male and female, or question and answer. And if you look at the question mark, right, it has curves like a woman. It is feminine. And the idea of mystery and darkness, and it's symbolized by the question mark, which should be just a massive coincidence. But all of these things are coming from deeper within the psyche when they were, formulated, and so they are informed by this deep knowledge that everyone has. That's why it's called gnosis. It's Terence McKenna said if the truth could be told so as to be understood, it would be believed. And that is because we all have this knowledge of this process deep within us. And that's why, when people encounter this kind of knowledge, they are almost without fail just, saying that they're feeling reminded of something. It's not like learning, it's like remembering. You hear that an awfully lot. And so, of course, the answer, the exclamation point, is a straight line, very much masculine. And so I just found that remarkably brilliant, that the way that's formatted there. And then this next part, it's unfortunate that it's just kind of written straight out like that, because if you center it, center the text, it actually kind of takes the form of the tree of life, and you can see the relationship more obviously. So the anti-primal triad, which is not God, nothing is, nothing becomes, nothing is not. The first triad, which is God, I am, I utter the word, I hear the word. The abyss, the word is broken up, there is knowledge, knowledge is relation. These fragments are creation, the broken manifest light. The second triad, which is God, God the Father and Mother, is concealed in generation. God is concealed in the whirling energy of nature. God is manifest in gathering, harmony, consideration, the mirror of the sun and of the heart. The third triad, bearing, preparing, wavering, flowing, flashing, stability, begetting. The 10th emanation, the world. And his commentary says this chapter is numbered 0 and corresponds to the negative, which is before Keter in the Kabbalistic system. The notes of interrogation and exclamation on the previous pages are the other two veils. The meaning of these symbols is fully explained in The Soldier and the Hunchback, which is an essay in another book. But this gives us another opportunity to extract some profound secrets from some very common and basic symbols. The 0, I don't know if you guys know what happens if you divide a number by 0, but you should try it and then think about what that implies. And then even the glyph, right? It's a circle. There's nothing inside, and then there's a line that if you continue it around and around and around is infinite. So even before the manifestation of the two, this dualistic idea was present in this nothingness, because it is just as much infinity as it is nothingness. And some, deep well within us informed the conception of these symbols, obviously. And it's also said in Kabbalistic teachings that all of the ideas and concepts that came to fruition from that original source, the Orphic egg, they all existed in God or in the deity or in this mind in some way, or else they never could have come to fruition. And if you think about an egg or a seed and the genetic blueprint that it contains, right? You could never get an oak tree from a seed unless it contained some type of blueprint for an oak tree. And so you can see this evident in the symbol of that very first thing, that nothing, which was also everything. And of course, this first chapter is basically just a outline or a basic description of the tree of life and the process that occurred. And you'll notice that they're broken up into triads, and each antinomy produces a third thing of a higher nature, and that is how this variation and complexity is derived from the interaction of these various energies. Not a tremendous amount to unpack there, but let's look. There's more commentary. This chapter begins by the letter O, followed by a mark of exclamation. Its reference to the theogony of Liber Legis is explained in the note, but it also refers to ktis, phalos, and sperma, and is the exclamation of wonder or ecstasy, which is the ultimate nature of things. The anti-primal triad. This is the negative trinity. Its three statements are, in an ultimate sense, identical. They harmonize being, becoming not being, the three possible modes of conceiving the universe. This statement, nothing is not, technically equivalent to something is fully explained in the essay called Barashit. And that is actually the first word in the Old Testament in Hebrew. It just means in the beginning. The rest of the chapter follows the Sephirotic system of the Kabbalah and constitutes a sort of quintessential comment upon that system. Those familiar with that system will recognize Keter, Chakma, Bina in the first triad, Dot in the abyss, Chesed, Geburah, Tiferet in the second triad, Netzach, Had, and Yesod in the third triad, and Malkut in the 10th emanation. It will be noticed that this cosmogony is very complete. The manifestation, even of God, does not appear until Tiferet, and the universe itself not until Malkut. The chapter may therefore be considered as the most complete treatise on existence ever written. And that may sound kind of arrogant and over the top, but it's not untrue. And again, I have gone into this stuff in extreme depth in the last few weeks in my Patreon. So if you're interested in elucidations and pontifications upon the Kabbalah and the processes that it describes, that's where to go.